Hello there. Welcome on this Sunday morning. It's Joe Chaffee and Joe Rayo. We're all smiles on this Joe and Joe weather show. I got up around 7 a.m., which is usual for me on a Sunday morning, and I went out. It's just beautiful. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful day.
It's
Uh,
gorgeous.
it is
It's gorgeous.
gorgeous. By the way, the thunderstorms yesterday afternoon, they didn't last long, but in some places they were pretty strong. At that narrow line, Joe, sometimes these upper troughs, you may not necessarily have a solid flow of tropical air and that really dew points up in the upper 60s and low 70s. I mean, it was humid, but it wasn't crazy humid. But you get a good upper trough to come on through, and you can fire up some storms in a hurry. And there was a very narrow, thin band. The one thing I didn't understand yesterday morning, and I made mention of this yesterday morning, SPC had a marginal risk from Maine down to about Rhode Island. They had a marginal risk, I think, from southern New Jersey down into eastern Virginia. But in between there, they had nothing.
Yeah,
I
nothing.
don't under, I didn't under,
And
later
then they
on they
updated and then they updated it after the fact, after literally the horse got out of the barn.
yeah.
Then they took that in that marginal area and attached the two, which included our area. But by that time, it was pretty much all over, said and done.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I really for the life of me. So why would you for the cup for the 150 miles or so that it is that they left out? Why would you do? I don't know. Why would you do that? It's and of course where did some of the stronger storms develop inside the inside that area that originally didn't get covered. Sometimes you look. We all do it. Sometimes you get so what I would refer to as rocket scientistic or rocket scientists that it's going to rain on this street corner, but not necessarily on that street corner. And while every once in a while you can probably nail it that way, you can also really sometimes you hang yourself out to dry.
First of all, if you remember SPC, and this is not a knock on
Yeah, we
them,
love SPC. Yeah, we're not
they,
knocking them here.
they
Don't
are
get.
wonderful. But I mean, like 2 days ago, we were kind of scratching our heads and saying, "You're not going to mention a chance of a thunderstorm, even general thunderstorms for our area on Saturday?" Because if you remember, the entire Northeast was devoid of any thunderstorm activity. They had all of the activity to our south. Then they they finally did put us in general thunderstorm activity, but then they, as you pointed out, to the north and to our south, it was marginal chance of severe weather. And then finally, after all the fireworks had pretty well ended, that's when they said, "Oh well, we might as well connect both of those marginal areas and include the tri-state." I got robbed. I really got robbed. There was a line of showers and storms developing quite nicely to our north and west over parts of Sullivan and Dutchess and Ulster County, and I said, "Okay, here we go. We're gonna get ours." And then it just fizzled out. And then it kind of leapfrogged into the New York City area. My sister in Throg's Neck said the sky got very dark, loud thunder, lots of lightning, heavy rain. And of course, I saw what happened out on Long Island. And I said, "What happened to us?
Yeah.
We got robbed."
Jeffrey Marrow points out my frustration yesterday because yesterday in the morning I did a weather in five, and talking about the fact that they had that spot in between where they didn't indicate any severe risk, and he's right. As soon as I finished that uploading that video and distributing it out and putting it on the app and the website and on Patreon and everything else, SPGC changed the forecast. They did it to me Friday night when I put out, I wrote up a whole thing about Tropical Storm Cristobal on the advisory. They had a tropical storm watch up they put up a tropical storm watch up for the Louisiana coast to the Florida to Fort Walton. As soon as I published it, they changed the next advisory. Literally the intermediate advisory comes out. No, it's a tropical storm warning, and I got sent a few folks messaged me saying, "Hey Joe, they just changed it to a tropical storm warning." They just wait for me. I mean, clearly they wait for me to just sort of do their thing. Let's wait till Joe is done so that he's completely embarrassed himself, and then then we'll put out the real forecast.
Right.
All right,
And
so
it
go ahead.
happens. No, it happens.
Yeah,
That's
it's just
you
the
know
nature of what we do.
yeah.
So we're going to roll through the weather this morning because you know what? It is so nice out. I don't think anybody wants to sit around inside watching, or unless you're outside watching. And a lot of times when I go on my walks, which I did this morning, I did my 5 miles with my 8 pound weights. I either put a podcast on or during the week I'll put CNBC's live audio feed that comes through, and that just passes the time. So if you're outside, listen to the audio, and then you can come back and always look at the graphics later on. Cristobal is nearing the coast, Joe. It is not your, you know, it's not your usual tropical storm. It has probably looks more tropical now than it has in its life cycle, but you don't have the strongest winds tied in near the center. The center is very broad, and actually the strongest gales are out to the east. But nonetheless, the biggest deal continues to be the rain that is being produced from southeast Louisiana eastward into Florida.
Oh, was that my cue?
That's your cue, Joe. That means you. I stop. I talk. You talk.
Well, I would not be set now. It's what now? Now we're coming up on the 11:30 or noontime advisory
Well, we have
from
the 11 a.m. advisory, yeah, which
and
I'll get to.
it's what now? Maximum sustained winds near the center. What 50?
Maximum sustained winds were 50 last I looked at it. I didn't see the new 11 a.m. Eastern Time advisory, but I'll check it in momentarily. Hang on a
I'm
second.
still I'm still hinging on maybe the system getting closer to minimal hurricane force because as we pointed out back on Friday night, the temperatures right along the immediate Gulf Coast are several degrees warmer than out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Something like 80 or 81 in the middle of the Gulf, but closer to the coast it's like 85, 86, and we all know
Right.
that tropical cyclones just love temperatures that are in the vicinity of 85, 86.
Well, so it's only got it's 60 miles from landfall. It's 28.7 and 90.0 west. I mean,
Well, there's still
it's
time at
virtually right on the coast.
the slow movement. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If it gets up to like maybe they'll just say, the heck with it. That they'll keep it at 50 or whatever like that. But I think 55 or even 60, maybe. But again, the main problem with this storm is not going to be so much the wind as it will be the rain. The
Right.
rain's going to be absolutely tremendous along the immediate Gulf Coast, especially. What do we talk about, Joe? 5 to 10, 6 to 12, something
Yeah,
like that?
probably. And there's already, the rain's been going on since late yesterday when it came, started setting up ashore. The track, by the way, the forecast track, I just put it up here. It's at 28.7, 90.0 west, top winds at 50, moving north at 12. And the track has been virtually unchanged for 3 days. The Hurricane Center's these forecasts that they've been putting out in the last couple of years have gotten really good. Especially, you go out, you get inside that 72-hour time frame. The margin of error has come down to almost a handful of miles, which is a phenomenal. That really is a phenomenal feat considering what the margin of errors were when you go back, say 5 years, 10 years, and beyond.
And Joe,
So
Joe, when was the last time? When was the last time that you saw the projection for a tropical depression over James Bay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is obviously going to become a post. It holds on to its identity right until it gets up into southern Wisconsin before it transitions over into a strong extratropical storm. We mentioned it the other day, the 981 low over James Bay in the month of June. I mean, you just don't see storms like that, of that depth that often this time
Right.
of year. The radar this morning. Actually, before we even do that, I have the latest the recon that's out there, and let's see if this is the. All right, so this was the last. I guess this was the last flight in. The one thing I would point out is the fact that the strongest winds. The storm center is right along 90 degrees west. You have to go at least 60 or 70 miles to the east until you get into the blue, and this is at flight level, the blue wind barbs, which are 30 to 34 knots, so just below gale force. And then you start to go out, 50, 60, 70 miles out east of the center, and you've got winds of 55 to 60 knots in south, well southeast of the center. So, I mean, this is where, well, I had said, this is not your typical, this is not your dad's kind of tropical storm. This is
Right.
a bit more subtropical in nature. I mean, it's just kind of, we're talking about semantics here. The outcome is going to be the same, and regardless of what, whether it's tropical or subtropical, it really doesn't matter that much. The bottom line is that it's going to do what it's going to do. And the radar, this at the moment, let's just get it down into Florida, and points west. You'll notice, folks, the center's coming in, right along 90 degrees west, which is about the longitude of New Orleans. But there's not that much going on west of there. And you've got, bands of rain that are coming in from off the Gulf of Mexico, along the Mississippi and Alabama Gulf Coast. You also have this rain area that's been plaguing now. It's moved up further north into central and north Florida, and the Panhandle, and into southeast Georgia. So it's just kind of this, it's almost like this gigantic arm of rain that is lifting up well to the east of the circulation center, but just very little going on to the west.
It's kind of amazing how bad the weather is in the Gulf Coast and will be across the nation's midsection. And here we are in the Northeast, here in the tri-state area, sitting complacently in what has to be some of the nicest weather that you could ever ask for in the month of June. It's glorious out there today. Tomorrow will be even better because there'll be less wind and it'll be a little warmer and there'll be a bit more sun because we got to have a lot of those big cumulus puffy fair weather clouds out there right now dancing around with the sun. But still, how glorious is it out there now for us as opposed to other parts of the country that are really going through their misery because of, again, Cristobal.
Right. By the way, I just put up the surface map with the obs and the wind barbs, just to give you an idea here where the strongest winds are also confirmed. Just like the recon said, if you look where the strongest wind gusts are, there's a buoy out called Main Pass 289C. It's actually an oil rig, the Apache Corporation oil rig out there, 79, 75 temperature dew point. Southeast wind at 40, gusting to 50, this is miles per hour, 40 gusting to 52. The Chevron Petronas oil rig is southeast at 49, gusting to 56. And along the immediate coast, we're seeing, gusts of 35 to 40 miles an hour right now with the center where it is. And you've got a couple of obs. Eugene Island, which is north at 39, gusting to 44. The Shell Oil Salsa oil rig is north at 29, gusting to 36. I like getting these oil rig obs. Green Canyon Atlantis oil rig, west at 22, gusting to 30. To the northwest of that, the Green Canyon 338 front runner rig is west northwest at 21, and that's it. No gusties.
Now we don't want any of those oil rigs to, or any of the things down in the Gulf states to shut down because obviously that would mean that our very low gas prices would suddenly take a spike. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, a lot of these rigs, Joe, are already shut down. They've been shut down since the oil meltdown back in March and early April. Most of the rigs in the Gulf of Mexico are not operating right now. They're not producing oil.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, there'd be a glut, right? I mean,
there's a huge glut.
I mean, up
And,
here where I live, believe it or not, Joe, I know it's different out on Long Island, but up here in the lower Hudson Valley, there's still some gas stations that are trying to sell regular at like anywhere from 235 to 260.
That's ridiculous. I mean, here a few stations maybe because they haven't sold any gas until recently, where people are now starting to move around and actually buying it, that they have to take delivery. But just about everybody, most gas stations here on Long Island are all under $2 now.
Right.
You know,
And the reason, of course, is that probably a lot of that gas at these stations that are trying to sell these higher than usual prices, a lot of that gas has probably been sitting in their tanks
Yeah, since
before
February.
since February or March. So I would advise anybody who is going to get gas at those kind of prices, if you dare get them at those prices, before you put that in your tank, maybe you ought to go down to Home Depot or someplace and get a bottle or two of stable, at least to
Yeah, just put a
you
little
know
stabilizer in there just to get your because that gas gets old in a hurry in the car.
exactly.
By the way, I'm just looking on this on the surface map again. The center of circulation is really, if you just follow the wind barbs, folks, from where the winds go east and then northeast and north and then west. Your low center, your center of circulation is right there. You really have to look at the pressures to get an idea of the exact location, but just from what you see with the wind barbs, you can figure it out. So if you were doubting that there was a circulation there, the observations on the surface prove it all. And the rainfall amounts that WPC is indicating, if you look at the way they have it shaped on the map here, you've got this ball of 7 to 10 inch rains in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and that's surrounded by 5 to 7 inch rains in the orange that go a little bit further west and east in all directions. And this is rainfall from as of 8 a.m. this morning Eastern time to for the next 7 days. So anything that fell yesterday or last night or over Florida over the last 3 days, that's not in this equation. This is rainfall yet to come. And in northern Florida, seeing rainfall amounts on the order of up to 2 or 3 inches on top of what's already on the ground. And that's why we have flash flood warnings up for flash flood watches up from northern Florida all the way back west into southeastern Louisiana.
Right, right. It's like I said, take your choice, folks down in the Gulf. But you mentioned the other day that you get used to the kind of weather that they have down in, let's say, New Orleans and along the Gulf Coast. I mean, somebody like us, who have lived up here all our lives, we just shake our heads and say, how do you deal with that on a
Yeah. Oh,
semi?
you get used to it. I did.
Yeah,
We have a working tornado watch, by the way. It just went up a little while ago. It's a Tropical Storm Cristobal related tornado watch. It was issued at 14Z, so that was at 10 o'clock. So it's been up for about an hour. If you're watching this later this afternoon on a replay, remember, folks, this is dated. So we're talking here at 11:17 Eastern time. So be sure you go to your local National Weather Service office forecast page to get the latest weather information, and you can do that by going to what website, Mr. Rayo?
weather got weather weather.gov
Weather.gov. Yes.
or weather got dove.
Yes. Marginal risk of severe weather with a slight risk being indicated for southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi down to the coast. Enhanced risk today, Mr. Rayo, up in the eastern parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota, with slight risk back up into parts of Wyoming and eastern Montana, down into northern Nebraska. So we've got a pretty active severe weather outlook there. And across the country in terms of what hazards we have. Those flash flood watches now have been extended northward up through Arkansas and southern Missouri. So this is in anticipation of Cristobal once it comes inland and starts moving northward. Flash flood watches over the Florida Panhandle, flash flood watches in central Florida. They continue for at least a little while longer. Out in the west, with the deep trough in the west, I'm thinking that's got to be frost. Well, there's two different colors. So one of those is winter weather advisories. So we have winter weather advisories up for areas up in central Idaho and in western Montana, while we have frosts and freezes for parts of California, southern Oregon, and into most of the northern half of Nevada. I mean, this is really cold stuff. In the west. So deep trough in the west, driving this tropical storm straight northward up the middle Mississippi Valley. And who benefits from that? The Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states for the next couple of days just don't see any big weather problems as far as I can tell.
No, we're sitting pretty. There's nothing that we need to be overly concerned about. Maybe by the time we get to Wednesday, some of the blow off from all of that moisture associated with Cristobal or the remnants thereof will begin appearing in our skies in the form of wispy, thin, high clouds veiling the sun. But until then, Joe, this is about as good as it gets for the usually hazy and somewhat smazy month of June.
Yeah. For tomorrow, by the way, for severe weather, also still going on in parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Slight risk from Nebraska northward up into Minnesota. And then on Tuesday, where we have the remnant low moving further north, you see this sort of large area of marginal risk from southeast, from East Texas and South Texas northeastward up to the lower lakes to Illinois, Indiana, and southern Iowa. So all the action in terms of thunderstorm activity is going to be focused where the trough is, which is much further to the west. And in the meantime, we sit in a really, really good sweet spot. I was looking at the upper air, Mr. Rayo, and my takeaway from this is the fact that we're going to stay dry through much of this week, the work week. The only interruption that I see is maybe Wednesday night with the chance for a couple of showers or maybe a thunderstorm or two going by with a cold front. It doesn't look like any kind of powerhouse here, but we're in this northwest flow in the eastern U.S. I think it's probably better if I widen this out. But we're in this northwest flow in the eastern U.S. And, of course, you see this deep trough that's in the west, and Cristobal, which is down in the Gulf right over Louisiana, moving northward. And that deep trough just picks it right up and sort of merges with it. You get this really wrapped up upper low in northern Wisconsin by the time we get to Wednesday. That's your 980-ish low that eventually winds up going to James Bay. And for us, it really just kind of skims a cold front through here sometime Wednesday night or early Thursday. The ridge weakens a little bit, but it's mostly a dry flow. And then going into next weekend, we start to see some energy dropping down into the east that might get stuck for a while. But I have decided that the weather is too nice today to start worrying about that, and we'll deal with that as we go through this week.
I like how look at the we can't call it a pressure gradient on the upper air, but when we get to like Wednesday, that southerly or southwesterly flow over the central and eastern Great Lakes,
Oh yeah.
fairly vigorous.
Well, here's how here's when we switch over to the surface for that same time frame. You've got a 981 low over the western shores of Lake Superior. I mean, that's crazy. Look at the gradient, how tight the gradient is, though, at the surface in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, down through Illinois and Chicago. They're going to blow away here. I mean, this is probably going to you're probably going to maybe see some wind advisories out of this.
Yeah, lake wind advisories. I don't know what they call them, but
Yeah.
you're definitely going to need something along those lines for the middle of the week.
And you got a 79 low north of Lake Superior by Wednesday afternoon. If folks, if you notice, there's just like this arm that comes out of it right out there. That's your that's your cold front that's moving east, and you get this little area of showers and storms that forms ahead of it. But it just really, it's not impressive at all. Maybe we get fired up with a shower or thunderstorm here Wednesday night as that front goes by. And then after that, it should turn dry for Thursday and Friday to finish off the week. Again, things may start to get a little more complicated next weekend with some kind of front stalling over the East Coast. And that could mean maybe a couple of waves, but we got time to figure out whether that's going to happen the way the models are indicating. And by the way, out in the West, there's your snow for this afternoon in parts of northern Nevada, northeast California, southern Oregon, into Idaho, and eventually into western Montana and even into western Wyoming come early on Monday. So a little bit of late June snow. And there is Cristobal inland in Louisiana, moving northward right up along or just west of the Mississippi River. It becomes this big extratropical storm, heads up into Canada, and then eventually through Labrador and probably over to Greenland.
By the way, I'm looking on the chat board here, and Scott Briller reminds me, Joe, that you said no 90s in Central Park in June. First week, none. Second week, none predicted. But I will point out to you that we came awfully close. LaGuardia hit 90 degrees yesterday, and so did Newark. I think Central Park did not. Central Park topped off at about 86, 87.
Well,
But
that's what we're going with. I mean,
yeah,
if if the rules of the game were LaGuardia, I would have maybe forecasted something slightly different than what I did.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So we came close yesterday. And in fact, in the morning, it felt so because we still had dew points near 70. And
icky.
then after
The
and
word
after
is icky.
3 or 4 o'clock, even though I didn't get any thunderstorms where I was, stepping outside with the breeze picking up, you could feel the humidity literally going down, and it was still very warm. So it was a lot better in the afternoon yesterday as opposed to what we had in the morning. And now, of course, it feels, I'm not going to say it feels like fall, but with that gusty wind and those much lower humidities, it really feels very, very nice.
Bill Uber was reminding me not to get Sal all upset now with the chance for a thunderstorm, for thunder showers or a thunderstorm for a couple of hours Wednesday evening. I think I don't think that's enough for him to go into hiding, but I will bear that in mind. So, by the way, I don't know if Facebook converted the look of the platform the other
Right.
day,
They did, and then they went
and
right.
they went into, and I liked it. I really liked it. It made a few things a little bit easier for me. As I'm flooding social media with so many interesting things. But they went back to this one
Went back.
this morning. I really liked it the new way.
I said to myself, did I do something to convert or go back? Did I push a button that I didn't mean to push? But apparently, I found out from others that the same thing happened. They went to the new look, and then all of a sudden they went back to the old look. I don't understand their reasoning on
I have
doing that.
no idea. Who knows? Okay, so do you have anything for me Jeopardy wise
Yes, I do.
from Briller Jeopardy? And then I
Yes,
got
I
yours,
do.
and then we can go outside and enjoy ourselves.
Okay, this is for Sunday morning. Category: What else? Early movies. Question one. There are three questions here. Question one: What was the first movie to feature a toilet flushing?
The first movie feature a toilet flushing?
Right.
Hmm.
Want me to give you a hint?
Yeah, go ahead.
1960.
60?
Yep.
60. All right,
Hmm.
I'm going to take a wild guess. Okay, I'm going to take a wild guess. So 1960, I'm going to say The Manchurian Candidate.
Eh.
Took a shot.
I wish I could try to do the theme music of this movie. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, Psycho.
Psycho.
Okay.
There you go. Number two, what was the only totally silent film to win Best Picture?
Oh, um, the World War, was it the World War One movie about World War One? What the hell? What was the title of that?
The
Was it Wings?
Wings, 1927.
Okay.
I would have said,
Oh,
oh,
that's not the movie. Let me. It is Wings, but the movie I'm thinking of was not a silent movie. It's All Quiet on the Western Front, and it just came to me. Okay,
well,
Wings.
I would have said but it was not a totally silent movie. He was the only one who didn't say anything. The Bellhop with Jerry Lewis, but that wasn't everybody else was talking, but he didn't.
But he did.
Number three, what was the highest grossing film of the 1940s? And the hint
Oh,
here is
good God.
a recently Discord post from Tim Veltman.
The 1940s.
And I will say this, when I saw this movie myself at the Interborough Theater, which now no longer exists
Mm-hmm.
in Frog's Neck, when I first saw this film, I actually started to cry at one point when I saw this movie from the 1940s.
I don't. We're going from 1940 to 1949. There was a number of wonderful movies in that whole stretch.
I'll give you a hint. It was an animated movie.
Oh, and you started to cry?
Hmm.
I mean, like not just cry, but well, I'm trying to figure out. So when it was in the theater for the first time, I'm gonna say
Well,
I'm
obviously,
gonna say Bambi.
all right, you're right, Bambi. It was obviously a 19. It was a
How could
19.
you not cry? Although, how could you not cry in Bambi? Although, I will tell you this: if you're ever in a situation where someone has to go to the bathroom and has to find a place to go, I usually start singing the song from Bambi. Drip, drip, drop, little April showers. I had one person I did that to almost kill me because they
Oh,
really had to go bad.
oh,
I'm a meanie.
yes, yes. Well,
Okay, so for you, the category is BTV. The question is, what was the first TV family to own a computer?
could that be Doogie Howser?
No, it's even sooner than that.
The first family to own a computer. Hmm. Well, it wasn't Lost in Space, was it? No, it's not.
No,
I don't know.
the Adams family.
The Adams family, they owned a computer?
Well, remember they used to put the thing. He would put questions into this machine, and then it would come out with some ridiculous answer. It was in a couple of episodes. I completely forgot about it, but that
Yeah,
shows up every once in a while. The
right.
flag in the opening credits of Gilligan's Island is flying at half mast. Why?
Oh, because they filmed that pilot episode. Well, not the pilot, but they filmed the opening scenes for the show during the weekend or during the week when President Kennedy was assassinated, and it was in Hawaii. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And on the Andy Griffith Show, Andy has two state maps upside down behind his desk. Which two states?
Two state maps upside down.
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed that.
No, neither did I.
So what are they?
Idaho and Nevada, or Nevada.
And they're upside
And
down,
they're upside down. There
and
has
nobody.
to be a reason behind why they're upside down. I don't know what that reason is.
Now you're going to have me watching those Andy Griffith reruns to look for that. That's weird.
Yep.
Somebody, I'm going to Google that after the show and say
Google it and find out.
why were those two maps upside down?
Yep. I don't know. So look, it's 11:32. I think we covered a lot of weather in these 30 minutes. In spite of the fact that it's really Cristobal and then not too much else, that's not necessarily a bad thing because we got a pretty good weather week ahead of us. So let's enjoy the rest of this Sunday. You have yourself a good day, Mr. Rayo. I will have myself a good day too. And you folks on the chat board, and if you're watching from home, have a great rest of your day. And we will see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And to my
7 o'clock.
my friends in New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana, where I worked 3 wonderful years back in the mid 1980s. Stay safe from Tropical Storm Cristobal. I hope you got the sewers back working because they had this power outage, this pump outage in New Orleans back on Friday, and they weren't sure that they were going to get that working again. So
Right.
hopefully they did, because you don't want to, when you're below sea level, it's a problem. You
Yes.
got to pump your water out.